Hey man, what's up? Yeah, I'm just like trying to get some schoolwork done. Yeah, well, hey, look, I was wanting to take a break. Was wondering if you want to go get some coffee. You want to go get some coffee? Sweet. You got some time now? All right, great. I'll come by and pick you up in just a minute. 15? Excellent. I'll be right there. Later. Welcome to the Art Project. The AP Studio Art Guide suggests, and I believe this is true, that our artwork comes from our experiences. So this is a little video about an experience I had just recently. I was going to a friend's house, pick him up to get some coffee together. And on the way I saw this trash pile, and the trash pile had a dartboard in it. So I backed up, like any good garbage collector, treasure hunter, dumpster diver would, and I picked up this dartboard, threw it in the back of my van for later. Now, I was doing this mainly because, well, I have a man cave, and in my man cave, I need a dartboard. All good man caves need a dartboard. So I brought this dartboard home with me, and my intention was not to make art out of this dartboard, but as time went on, this dartboard became kind of interesting to me, and so I decided to document my experiences so far, and then later on that would become a work of art. Document experiences to generate possibilities for making art and design. This is skill 1A in the AP Studio Art Handbook. I started documenting almost immediately my experiences with this dartboard, not so much in terms of like a way to make art, but just because it's part of my daily life. I feel like the sketchbook is such an integral part of the artist's life because it's a way of remembering things, it's a way of planning things, and it's a way of experiencing things more deeply. And so another thing is that you don't always have a 8 by 10 canvas or a 30 by 40 canvas to just jump right in and start making art on. So the sketchbook, which is always there because you take it everywhere you go, is available for you to just start writing and documenting your life in. And this documentation in this life, this documentation of life, becomes a resource for you as an artist to draw from. It becomes something that you can go back to and look at and remember some of your experiences more deeply. And even if you don't go back and look at it, simply writing your experiences down helps you to remember them later on better. So the sketchbook is extremely important here. Also, in regards to the dartboard, I found it in a trash pile, and so it actually did not have the numbers on it. When I started to hang it up and use it, I thought, oh my goodness, it doesn't have numbers. How do you score it? So I had to do some research on how to number a dartboard, and eventually I plan on painting the numbers onto the dartboard or onto a ring that I can put around the dartboard. But that's a side note. But it caused me to have to figure out how the segments are lined up, how are they divided. And as I was doing this, it occurred to me that the dartboard is not divided up in ways that make instant sense. In other words, if I was to divide it up, I'd divide it up halfway down the middle, again halfway, and then divide that in half and divide that in half. And when you're done, what you'd end up with is like 16 or 32 segments. Well, that's too many. That's not what a dartboard has. And so if I'm going to do a painting of a dartboard, I kind of need to know how the numbers are laid out and how the segments are divided up and so on. And so I tried this out a few different ways until I came to the conclusion that it's actually divided up into 18-degree segments. But anyway, so as I was doing this, the more and more ideas were coming to me as far as the art goes. And of course I had to try out the dartboard. Document examples of how inquiry guides sustained investigation through art and design. So I started taking pictures. The pictures are obviously faster than drawing it, or a little bit faster than drawing it. I could do several at one time. And I glued these down to sort of think about and ask questions about the compositions that I could use or the materials that I might use. And so I glued these down into my sketchbook and started asking the what if questions. Things about composition and materials and so on. Things about shadows. I also drew a couple of extra ones, thinking about what it would be, if it were just kind of messy, hand-drawn, about the distance. This is, again, about composition. If I'm standing at the distance that you would throw the dart towards it, what would it look like, and how would that appear in a painting? Then I started thinking about shadow, and I did a little drawing of a shadow, but then I needed a little bit more space, so I glued this picture down and did another picture of the shadow. Anyway, the ideas just were going and going and going and going. So, the remainder of this video is going to be me working on the first example of a work of art based on this dartboard. It's real simple. It's not incredibly amazing or interesting or anything like that. But before I did anything with it, I wanted to try it out in my sketchbook. And so this is sort of my first trial for my first painting of the target. And it's really just sort of an initial get to know the sketchboard kind of painting. Straight on, sort of Jasper Johns style, which I'll talk about more probably later on in another video maybe. Jasper Johns, if you're not familiar with him, you should look him up. This is sort of a plain painting, and it's not terribly exciting, but there are uses for plain paintings. Decoration for a house. Sometimes people don't want, really elaborate painting. Sometimes they just want minimalist work. And so this is the target just for the sake of the target. I started coming up with some other ideas as I was doing this, so I marked those down too. And then this is the first painting that I did with the target. The first kind of full scale. I got a piece of 18 by 24. I started creating a target with my compass, the largest I could with the size of the compass, and then just started measuring inwards different increments to get a proportionate looking target. Measuring out 18-degree segments and then drawing those off. You only have to measure out on half because the line continues through to the other half of the dartboard and makes another segment. I erased it all a little bit so you wouldn't be able to see it through the crayon, and I used a sea green crayon to draw the little segments. I was going to use white, but we didn't have a white crayon anywhere, so I have two girls and neither one of them had white crayons. I don't know why. Anyway, but I used the sea green and was kind of okay with that because it was a light color, and the dartboard, the wires on the dartboard are not pure white anyway. So then I used black ink for the exterior ring, or for all the black rings. I like when you put a lot of water down and then you add ink to the water and it spreads, and so that's kind of the technique that I'm using here. First, I'm using a little bit of dirty water and filling in the segment, and then dripping a little bit of ink into it and letting it spread. That way, not every segment is the same and the picture has a little bit more interest to it. Alright, so this is kind of a funny part of it. I did the entire, those two red rings, I did all of them red before I looked closer at my target and realized that they were red and green. My wife had to explain this to me. So I went back and I painted every other one with some white acrylic paint to kind of cover up that mistake, and then later on I could add some green paint to it. This actually worked out good because it creates a different texture. The green watercolor on top of the white acrylic paint is different than watercolor on top of paper. So since I didn't glue down book pages to this like I did in my sketchbook, I had to paint in the center segments with the tan color. While I was waiting on that to dry, I threw some darts. And then I came back with some green. So back to the point of this whole video. In AP Studio Art, 2D design, drawing, and 3D design, or I think it's got a new name, AP Art Design. Anyway, in this class, one of the very first things that you have to deal with is how your experiences drive your art. So there's that. Document investigation of viewers' interpretations of art and design. Well, it's summertime. I didn't have a nice formal place to do this, so I grabbed the closest person to me. What do you think of my painting?
I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Oh, how you did the colors and how you did it with our crayon.
Oh yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
Well, what can I do to make it better?
You should do like the arrows that are on it.
Oh, you mean like the darts?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what else could I do besides darts?
Do spirals in the corners.
Oh, spirals in the corners?
Yeah. That should be cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I love you. Can I have a kiss? All right, go play. Well, I'm going to take her advice, but not on this first painting. I'm going to use it in the next painting. Maybe put some spirals in the corners and some darts on the dartboard. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video, and thanks for working with me. Thanks for listening. Go make some art.